Let the meltdown begin. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's freaking do this thing as we're jacked up for tonight's program. We got a kick-ass card. UFC 171 this Saturday in Dallas, Texas. Ruthless Robbie Lawler and Johnny Hendricks throwing it down. We've got a $1,000 free roll, courtesy of the people at Countermove. Joey Odessa, the premier combat sport odds maker in the business, will join us from Costa Rica a little bit later on in the program. The Fight Network's John Ramdeen will join me in studio. We'll break down the upcoming card, but let's kickstart the program with a man that was supposed to join us a couple of weeks ago, and I was really excited. I know you guys are really excited that he was coming on the show, but took us a couple of weeks of playing phone tag and to get him off the golf course and on the phone, but we welcome Cub Swanson to MMA Meltdown. Cub, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I appreciate that great introduction.
You know what? Well, hey, we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And, you know, I'm pissed off because I haven't seen you do your thing in the octagon in like 8 months' time. But I guess the plus side is you're working on your handicap out there on the links.
Yeah, you know, I've just been picking up a little bit of a hobby. I got sponsored by Power Bill Golf, and we've just been working on some things together. And part of it is me not embarrassing myself when I start doing charity tournaments. So I got, you know, since I don't have a fight and I keep begging for one, I just, you know, stay out there in the golf courses.
Golf is such a battle. You're not really competing with the other guys. You're battling against yourself and the actual course. Do you take it seriously, like mentally when you're out there, or are you swinging more for fun? Because golf can be a real tough mental game at times.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I just played the other day, and I was telling myself to calm down and don't let it get to me. And it took me the first six, and then I finished real strong. But my instinct was just to throw my club and be pissed. But because my problem is, as a fighter, we're so explosive. So when I wind back, I keep telling myself, okay, just nice, easy swing. And I'm just like, just like if it were a punch, and it's not really helping.
No, dude, you know, I'm a degenerate gambling hothead that used to be in a metal band, and I actually got into golf for a while, and since we're gamblers, me and my buddies couldn't help it, so we ended up betting like $100 a round, $50, and we'd come to blows, like literally nearly fist fights, Cub. And if I'm out there with you and I see you move your ball, I'm not saying nothing. You know, you can move your ball and I won't have a problem with it.
Well, I appreciate it.
So, Cub, you mentioned, you keep asking for a fight and you're not getting one. And it kind of pisses me off. And I'm not going to put you in a bad spot here right now because you got great things coming in the UFC. But as an outsider, I look and I always hear Dana and the company say, we want to reward fighters that go out there and entertain the fans. We want to reward fighters that take chances and put on real fights. That's exactly what you do. Yet it seems like everybody in the UFC has fought twice since you fought last. And I know you had some work done on your elbow, but from what I understand, you're good to go.
Yeah, and I've been good to go. I only got that procedure because I was really trying to get another fight in before I needed to get it done. And there was just nothing available for me. You know, I've been asking for fights. Everybody who's called me out, I've been like, okay, this dude wants to fight, what's up? And they're like, it doesn't make sense and all that, you know, stuff. So, I'm frustrated too. I just want the biggest fights. I feel like I've earned that. I feel like I've earned a title shot. And I just want the biggest fights. I feel like you said, they tell us to go out there and put on a good performance and finish the fights in exciting fashion, and that just only helps you. And I feel like I've just had this, problem now that I just can't get a fight.
Like I said, I've got a big mouth, but I don't want to put words in your mouth or lead you down a path. But would you be outraged basically if it isn't at least you against Mendez as opposed to, all right, he gets a shot? Because, you got the alpha male guys and it's all politics, and it drives me crazy. It's supposed to be about results, and you freaking gotten the results. Everybody cried, give Lamas a shot. The guy hadn't fought in a freaking year. Oh, give him a shot, give him a shot. He got his shot. We saw what happened. I think you deserve the shot, but I'm not so sure you're going to get it right away. I hope that you do. But in your own opinion, if you don't get the shot, is fighting Mendez good enough? Is that close enough to what you need to get?
Yeah, I'd definitely fight Mendez to get the title fight. I'd do whatever it took. The thing is I want to fight the guys above me, and I just don't think that's going to be able to happen. The last time I was offered somebody, it wasn't, even in the top 10, and that was right around when I had got my elbow done. And I'm just like, I don't see how I can possibly fight somebody outside the top 10,
Yeah, forget about...
It's just frustrating.
Forget about the top 10.
Lamas,
you should be fighting people in the top 2, the top 3. As you stated, you want to fight guys above you. There's no one above you right now. You can argue, all right, there's Mendez and Aldo, so let's get it on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, technically in their rankings, Frankie Edgar and Lamas are still ahead of me, which I think is ridiculous. But, I said I'd fight Lamas. And to be the whole thing about him waiting a year to fight for the title, he turned down many, many fights. And that's a fact. I didn't turn down any fights. I'm just like, yeah, well, whatever is going to get me, to the top. Let's do it.
As we're in conversation with Cub Swanson, Cub, and I saw you, and I saw guys, I don't know, it was like a weekend in which every fighter decided to step up and start firing you off tweets. And I was almost getting mad. I was like, what are you, an idiot? Why would he want to fight you? Like, the guy's at the top right now. And you were so chill about it, man. And I forget which guy it was, but finally you responded. You said, listen, I'm trying to get a big fight here. If I don't, maybe I'll fight you. And, you're not running from anybody, but you handle it so, so coolly, Cub.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Is just like, I can't get into an argument it's like, let's not argue and not fight. That's just lame. If we get to fight and you want to talk crap, then cool, let's do it. That just gets me excited to fight, But I really don't see the point in getting into an argument with someone I'm not going to fight. And it's just the way I feel.
Cub, we spoke, we had Stitch Durand on. And, Stitch is a regular on the show, but I asked him, in his opinion, who's the best cornerman in the UFC? Because as fans, we hear a lot of guys that, don't get taken down. And there's a lot of bad advice that fighters seem to get from their corner. And Stitch said he thinks that, Greg Jackson, sees what's going on in the octagon the best during a fight. And I think that the criticism, is unfair of Greg Jackson for the most part. Of Dana, he's killing the sport and the fighters don't bring it. But with that being stated, because it's about winning fights, with that being stated, you seem to me to be the most aggressive and reckless guy in that gym. And I'm imagining that it's got to give Greg heart attacks. And is it to the point where everybody else is like, don't do that. But they're sort of, with Cub, it's a little bit different where it's like, listen, it's working for him. It's dangerous as hell. Because that's why I love watching you fight. And Gray Maynard once told me, he said, Gabe, this sport's about taking chances. I want to fight, and if I lose, I lose. But I want to, know that I took a chance and I tried to win. You take a hell of a lot of chances, Cub, but it's working for you.
Well, I appreciate that. And as far as being the most reckless, I don't know. I mean, I got Diego Sanchez on my team, too.
That's
pretty
true.
Up there. But, yeah, Greg always laughs, and he's telling me, all right, Cub, he's the one who's pushed me to be creative, but he's told me don't be so creative that it's stupid, basically. And so he keeps me in check from doing anything too dumb. So, I mean, some of my stuff seems reckless, and it may be, but it's all part of my plan, So, I mean, I'm honored to have him in my corner, and then let alone I also have Joel Diaz, who just got Boxing Trainer of the Year in my corner. So I just feel with those two guys in my corner and with the way I work, I should not lose a fight.
We're in conversation with Cub Swanson. Cub, we've seen recently a lot of fighters, when they get to around 30 years old, it's kind of a crossroads. Some guys get sick of the sport and they get worn out. Other guys sort of really find themselves. Matt Brown. People go, oh, Matt Brown's got 11 losses. Screw you, he's got 11 losses. The guy's a killer. He'll mess anybody up right now. Carlos Condit, Pat Healy, a guy, that just sort of finds himself. Case in point, Robbie Lawler right now. What is it with you, Cub? Was it something in your personal life? Was it something that you were just like, wow, I just feel better than I've ever felt, that I'm more confident in the octagon? What was sort of the switch that flicked for you to make you go on this run that you've been on?
It's really been a combination of things. Just, I guess you could say, growing up. I've been lucky enough to win enough fights to stay in the WEC and Zuffa and UFC organization, and really allowed me to develop. I think the biggest thing was I got hurt real bad. I almost retired with a face injury. Kind of made me rethink the way I do things, and then really just training alongside great fighters that are always telling me how great I was, and I never really believed it. So I think it really took me being a little smarter with the way I approached the game and really just believing in myself.
Cub, how frustrating is it when you see fight announcements and you keep waiting? And I've asked fighters before in the past, like every time your phone rings, you're like, man, I hope this is Joe Silva. I hope this is Joe Silva, because it would start to really grind me. I'd be like calling them every day almost, like what's going on? But how does that work? You get the call, does the manager get the call, or do you wake up and see it on SureDog?
Usually I'll get a call or my manager will call me. My manager and Sean Shelby, we have a good relationship. But I mean, I have a bad habit of checking, all the MMA sites pretty frequently, a couple times a day, just to stay up on it. Because, I started as a fan of the sport, and I still am. So, that kind of drives me nuts. I'm trying not to look at it just because it's a constant reminder of me not having a fight. But another side of it is just the people asking me every day. I probably get asked 5 to 10 times a day, any word on your fight? Oh, who are you fighting next? Blah, blah. And after 8 months of that, it's getting on my nerves.
It's getting old, huh? It's getting old. Cub, one thing I like about you, and I don't know if you were like this, as a kid and stuff, but if you always looked out for the little guy or the underdog, so to speak. And I follow you on Twitter, and I saw you congratulating Neil Seery the other night for his performance against Brad Pickett. And guy's a 10-1 underdog, short notice. Comes in, little Irishman, and just laid his heart on the line, didn't he? He didn't win the fight, but he laid his heart on the line. And to me, once again, that's what fighting is all about, right? Bringing it, showing up and bringing it.
Yeah, you get an opportunity like that. Most of the guys know, holy crap, I just got the call on short notice to fight a stud like Brad Pickett. And most trainers and managers will go, look, the odds of you winning this fight aren't big, but just go out there and throw down, and that's your foot in the door, and that's what he did. He went out there and he didn't let the lights get to him, and he just threw down, and I can respect that.
I also saw you on Twitter wish Michael Sam the best. A linebacker came out as an openly gay man entering into the National Football League draft, and it's amazing. They got killers in the NFL. They got wife beaters in the NFL. But NFL GMs say, I think it'll be another 20 years before we can have a gay guy in the NFL. And, people are naive to believe there can't be anyone gay that's in the UFC right now. But how do you think it would be accepted? We saw in the football world, and, you said you wish the guy the best of luck because you root for the underdog. If it happened in MMA, in the UFC, how do you think it would play out?
Well, I had an openly gay fighter training with us, and he's a really solid dude, and it is what it is. I feel like as long as you're not trying to, be crazy and do anything that would make people intentionally feel uncomfortable, then there's no there's no reason not to have them around. It's just ridiculous at this day and age. I think when I was growing up, being in church, I was kind of led to believe that, this is probably a touchy subject for a lot of people, but, that I was led to believe that it was, wrong and it's a choice and they're not born like that. And now that I've grown up, I just try to accept people for who they are. And, you got to let people be who they are, and they're not hurting anybody, and they shouldn't have to be afraid of who they are.
Yeah, that's well said. Judge people by their character, right? Not by who they're sleeping with. It. I say this as someone that's not homophobic and heterosexual, but you said as long as people aren't feeling awkward. Listen, Dennis Hallman made me feel awkward with the Speedo, all right? Gay, straight. I think he made gay dudes awkward with that.
I'll agree with that. And as long as he can go out there and play football, then he deserves to be out there, and he doesn't have to hide who he is. And I just think that, a lot of people feel the need that they have to hide who they are, and I think people like him just coming out just makes that opportunity for other people to shine who they are. Because when you just be you're at your best.
Cub, we've got a great main event this Saturday with two guys that swing with bad intentions, and it's hard not to like Robbie Lawler. We talked about guys that sort of reach their peak around 30 years old. I believe Robbie's 31 years old right now. The guy's got sick, vicious power. The odds makers aren't giving him much of a chance. He's a 3-1 underdog. Hendricks is a 4-1 favorite in this fight. Who do you like in this fight? What do you make of this matchup between two southpaws that just both looking to take each other's heads off?
I think if it stays standing, I actually think Lawler's got the advantage. I think Hendricks is really going to have to mix it up. I think he is more likely to win, but he's definitely going to have to wrestle and keep them guessing. I think his last fight with GSP, I thought he won. But the judges didn't feel that way. But I also felt like he was headhunting and should have attacked the body more. Didn't really show great boxing skills. He just showed I hit hard. And so I think the advantage on the feet definitely goes to Lawler. But, I'd like to see a stand-up war.
Cub Swanson with us. So, Cub, finally, in closing here, before we let you go, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us here at the Fight Network. We've had a lot of fighters on the show over the years, and we get feedback, but people genuinely like you because you do go in there and entertain. And we often hear fighters say, I want to entertain the fans, but they're full of shit. They don't want to entertain the fans. They talk, they get a fight, and then, I had to win. Hey, the other guy's dangerous. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with fighters that fight safe, but I hate fighters that run their mouth and then fight safe after the fact. But you don't talk. You don't run your mouth. You just go out there. Do you go out there? Is it in your mind that, hey, some of these guys paid $800 to be sitting cage side. People paid big money for this. You say you're a fan. Are you actually thinking about that? Like, you know what? I want to put on a good show for the fans?
Oh, of course. That's always my thought process, and that's just, I'm an entertainer, we all are. I think people forget that. I think people, sometimes go out there to win the fight but not finish, or sometimes they just try to last the fight and not try to win. And you can see it in the way they fight. And I've always thought that when I'm in there, I kind of block out the crowd in my mind, but I'm very aware of the crowd's cheering or booing, and I try to go out there and just put on the best show I can. I remember when I fought in London with Dustin Poirier, I got to the event and I was like, I was the co-main event, so I showed up way late, and I asked the guys in the corner how the fights were going, and they were like, it's pretty bad. Been a lot of decisions. And I was like, man, this is my opportunity to just go out there. I got a game opponent, and we could just throw it down and really just, bring this crowd alive. And that was my whole purpose when I went out there.
And finally, in closing, Cub, because we go on and on, but I'll let you go with this, in that, You mentioned the WEC earlier. You look at the fighters that have come from there, and you guys are all the most entertaining guys in the UFC right now. I was talking about this just earlier today with somebody, and you go down the list, man, and there's just so many guys from Condit, Hendricks, hell, even Chael Sonnen, Aldo, Lamas, yourself. You go down the list, and I don't know what it is, but if you guys have a chip on your shoulder, or because there was always, they're inferior. Yeah, well, they're not too freaking inferior right now because guys are holding belts. And it was the same thing with Strikeforce. Oh, the Strikeforce guys. Yeah, well, Robbie Lawler's doing pretty damn good for a Strikeforce guy, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, with the WEC, it was kind of like our, like we were kind of brought up, we didn't have as much of the spotlight. We went out there, and I remember the viewing wasn't as big, and they were trying to keep their deal and trying to keep versus happy. And I remember Dana would come talk to us before every fight after weigh-ins in the fighters' meeting and say, "Hey guys, we need you guys to go out there and perform well." They were basically like asking us for a favor to go out there and just leave it all out there, and good things would come. And so every fight we all would, we would just throw down and just trying to get, like you said, respect. And I think that helped kind of groom a lot of us fighters that went on to the UFC, that we were pretty much ready for the big spotlight.
Cub Swanson, everybody, and hey, Dana White, Joe Silva, if you're out there, give this man a fight. Green fees aren't cheap in Palm Springs, California. Cub, it was great having you on the show. We'd love to do it again in the future. We really wish you the best of luck and really hope that you get that call sooner rather than later, man.
Man, I appreciate you having me on, and sorry about a few weeks ago. Really has never happened to me before. And if you guys want to see me fight Aldo, I know it'll be a hell of a fight, and if that's something you guys want to see, just tweet Dana White and Sean Shelby and let them know that that's the fight that you want to see.
Damn right, and we encourage everyone to do that right freaking now. Always a pleasure, Cub. Thanks for the time, man.
All right, thanks for having me, bud.
There's Cub Swanson with us. We missed Cub a couple of weeks ago, but it was worth the wait, wasn't it? Guy's a class act and one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC. And I don't want to put words in his mouth and stuff, but he's getting screwed over, man. He's getting screwed over. It's so much freaking politics in the UFC. It's almost like they're scared if certain guys are going to become champion. And, oh, no, what are we going to do then? It would be a great fight with Cub and Aldo. Who was the one guy that gave Aldo all he could handle? Mark Hominick. Why did Mark Hominick do it? Because Mark Hominick was fearless that night, and he brought it. He attacked. Cub Swanson attacks. The only way you're going to beat any of these freaking champions is if you attack them. All right, great stuff with Cub Swanson. John Ramdeen will join me in studio. Joey Odessa from Costa Rica. MMA Meltdown continues. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. I am Gabriel Morency. As you can see, we're sitting alongside the Fight Network's very own John Ramdeen. But before we get to the Rammer, let me just remind everybody, and we brought this up on the show last week when Robin Black was in studio, the Counter Move tournament is open for business, and spots are filling real fast, man, like real fast. There's only 1,500 people allowed in the contest. We're already at 700 people. It's insane. As of this taping, within one day, there was over 500 signups. It's a $1,000 cash prize and a UFC championship belt. Pretty hardcore stuff, man. Now, that's almost as cool as the grand. The belt is worth like $350, $400. Just don't ask John Jones to sign it because he won't. But countermove.com with a K. And, it's the Morency and Black Fight Network Fantasy Free Roll UFC 171. You got to be a freaking moron to miss it on the front page. All right, we'll remind you about that before we wrap up here tonight, but let's get down to business. John Ramdeen, probably the biggest Glory fan in this building. And I'll tell you what, John, this past Saturday night's card didn't disappoint.
Of course, you got Mirko Cro Cop and Remy Bunyaski, two former K1 champions in the main event. Remy Bunyaski ended up getting the decision. I had Mirko Cro Cop winning the fight, but how can you argue? Mirko Cro Cop in Croatia, you would imagine the judges being on his side, but Bunyaski in his retirement fight walked away the victor. But I think the biggest surprise for everybody, Andy Risty was one of my picks for best fighter of 2014, absolutely owning David Kiria until round 5. Kiria comes back, beats this guy around the ring, and emerges as the new champion. Absolutely thrilling stuff.
And pretty touching after when he broke down into tears. Like, genuine happiness. Wasn't the, I'm better than you, screw you all.
No,
he was broken down. I don't believe this. I ain't doing it. And they put the belt on him. And arguably, comeback of the year.
Yeah.
Can you think of like boxing, MMA, etc.? Nobody was getting smashed like that to come back like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you talked about how humble he was after winning the belt. He gave, obviously, he gave Andy Risty props, saying this guy is a tough competitor.
And even Risty was great, very, very gracious after. Like, wow. He was almost laughing.
Yeah.
He's like, wow. I can't believe what happened.
Yeah, again, I couldn't believe what was happening because Andy Risty was in full control of that fight. He knocked down David Kiria, and I think I don't think anybody anticipated that Kiria would come back in that 5th round, but it just shows you what type of spirit he has.
Now, there was a ton of stuff going on Saturday, and of course there was the UFC, there was college basketball, there was hockey, there was Alvarez and Angulo, and I missed the first 2.5 rounds of the Glory fight, the comeback. I was flicking around, and then I saw on Twitter, I just saw people, holy crap, how is he still standing? Holy crap. And I'm like myself, holy crap, I got to get back to Spike here. And then I saw it, and I'm like, wow, that was pretty much over the top. But I'm going to get on Joey Odessa's case about this in a couple of minutes' time. I love Glory, but I'll be honest, I'll love it more if I could bet on it. I'm just being honest here. And, you think the NFL is as popular without betting? Hell, you think the UFC is as popular without betting? Give me a line on this stuff, and we'll start breaking it down on the show. Speaking of the UFC this past Saturday, pretty impressive win for Gustafsson. Some people say, Manawa is not top 5 contender type of guy, but I think Manawa is pretty good. You look at the guys that he's beaten. Ryan Jimmo's no clown, and he beat him. I think Manawa's got some decent wins, but it's the way that Gustafsson won.
Yeah.
And after the fight, John Jones goes on Twitter and says, how about Gustafsson fights Cormier and I get the winner? I say, no, John. How about you fight Gustafsson and Cormier, waits his turn like Gustafsson has. And I don't think John Jones is scared of Gustafsson. I don't think he's lying in bed, I don't want to fight this guy. But I think he'd prefer not to fight him.
I think everybody right now is overlooking Glover Teixeira, and if I was Teixeira, I'd be absolutely pissed off
Glover
right now.
who? Exactly. Is he fighting?
That's right.
What?
I mean, this guy is going to come and bring a fight to John Jones. He's very, very talented, and I think he's one of the guys at 205 pounds that, he's got the crack at the title, but he is flying under the radar, and I've heard it for years. Chuck Liddell said that Teixeira was one of his best training partners. This guy has been around the game for a long time. He knows the type of opportunity he has here in this fight with John Jones. He's going to make the most of it, and I think after this fight, I think a lot of people will be surprised. It's like, maybe it should be the rematch with Teixeira that happens, not Alexander Gustafsson. But I think right now the 205-pound picture is very interesting. And all the UFC needs to do is have a couple of names in there. And they have Teixeira, they have Gustafsson, and they have Daniel Cormier. So I think right now the 205-pound mix is just very interesting for all the fans.
All right, we'll take a quick break here at the Fight Network. We'll come back. We'll get Ramdeen's opinion on UFC 171. Joey Odessa will also join us. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. You are watching MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. I am Gabriel Morency, sitting alongside John Ramdeen. All right, John, UFC 171. This is a lunch pail, blue-collar card, man, with guys that swing with bad intentions. Lawler, Hendricks, Lombard, Condit, Woodley, and then you got Shields. You got Shields in there that, you know, he Jake Shields you to death. And I like Shields actually to win this fight as an underdog against Lombard. But let's talk about this main event here with ruthless Robbie Lawler. Johnny Hendricks, a 4-1 favorite. Robbie Lawler plus 300. That's real hard to refuse, man.
That is insane. That doesn't make any sense why the odds are that way. Yes, we all know how talented Johnny Hendricks is. He can turn out your lights. But whose lights has he really turned out? Yes, he's knocked out Martin Kampmann. I mean, Martin Kampmann, I'm not going to say he's at the end of his career, but the guy's taken a step away from the sport right now because he's been in so many wars during his time in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and Johnny Hendricks has that power. You hit, all it takes is one perfectly placed punch on the button and you're going to sleep. We saw it with Martin Kampmann. He caught John Fitch, but I mean, all you have to do is go back and look at his fights with Josh Koscheck. In my opinion, he didn't win that fight, and I think Robbie Lawler, he's been in this game for so long. He's been one of his best friends in the entire sport and in life is Matt Hughes, UFC executive. You know that he and Matt had a conversation saying, look, we are going to make sure that you have the best training camp you have ever had. Of course, down in American Top Team in Florida, Hector Lombard, who's going to be peaking on the same night as Robbie Lawler. You also have Tyron Woodley, who's going to be peaking on the same night as Robbie Lawler, not to mention Jason High and, of course, Thiago Alves. Robbie Lawler, I expect, will have the best training camp he's ever had because it's his moment to shine, and I think Robbie Lawler is going to become the new UFC welterweight champion. However, it's not the real title. George St. Pierre is the champion.
Well, one thing about Johnny Hendricks is, and guys that have that knockout power, they seem to get a little flustered and frustrated when they're not knocking the guy out. Sure. And we saw that with George St. Pierre. By the fourth round, Johnny was getting pissed off, and he was almost swinging like a bouncer in a bar, like, you know, because I haven't got you yet. Dangerous way to live against Robbie Lawler, because Robbie's not called ruthless for nothing, right? And I don't think Robbie's going to be fearful to get into the pocket with Johnny.
I agree. I mean, what you need to do is go back and look at Robbie Lawler's fight with Melvin Manhoff. Melvin Manhoff brutalizes Robbie Lawler's legs. Robbie Lawler is in this fight until the end of the 3 or 5 rounds. And what happened? An overhand right, and Melvin Manhoff goes to sleep. K1 veteran Melvin Manhoff, the guy that knocked out Mark Hunt. So if Robbie Lawler can do that against Melvin Manhoff, he certainly can do that against Johnny Hendricks. However, at the end of the night, if I hear Johnny Hendricks wins a split decision, I wouldn't be surprised. You know, anything can happen. It's that close of a fight, but 3-1 or 4-1, Hendricks over Lawler. Come on, give me a break. That's why I think Robbie Lawler's the guy to pick.
I think they set the odds of what the public thinks, not what's actually going to happen. And speaking of odds, Joey Odessa will join us next. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. All right, let's get to our videos of the week. Before we do it, I just want to say thanks to the guys over at Fight for Something out there in Vancouver. It's a great company they have. They do MMA t-shirts, but the proceeds actually go to different charitable causes, and they switch the charitable cause up every month. So job well done, Fight for Something, guys. Check them out online. Let's get to our videos of the week. We're wondering about Anderson Silva. Will he ever fight again? Well, the guy's already kicking balls around, and we got some video of it.
Onze, 12, 13, 14, 15, a última.
I'm not a physiotherapist, but why would you have Anderson Silva kicking a ball with a freaking coffee table like a foot behind him? Like, hey, broke his leg. Let's have him work out in a living room right now. But hey, whatever. That's besides the point. Let's get to a video that might be the most shocking damn video that we've ever showed on this program. I've heard a lot of different submission attempts. That counter move doesn't have submission by fart. Check this out. The guy farts in his face. He tapped out due to farting. It's not too bad, actually. Forget about all the training if you're in the UFC. Just go to Taco Bell a couple hours before the fight. Save yourself a lot of problems. I haven't seen something that nasty since the Rikishi days in the WWE. Speaking of nasty, this is nasty. This is a nasty break, and if you're squeamish, leave the room. Listen to the snap.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Look at that. Oh.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
Look at that. No.
Oh my goodness.
No. Good job, kid. Good job. Don't let anyone ever say that gymnasts are a bunch of wusses ever again. That was just a vicious snap, man. Just vicious. All right, let's wrap it up with some vicious stick fighting involving a couple of rednecks in West Virginia, I'm assuming. It's real. I like this.
Work that stick, Mendez. Strike that stick right there. Right. Slide it in, slide it in.
Slide it in where? His neck?
Push it
over, Mendez. Lock the arm.
Lock the other hand, Mendez.
Watch the underhook, Mendez.
Twist the stick and put him in the headlock. And throw the headlock.
Oh, nice takedown.
Get up. Don't stay down there. Don't stay down there.
Beat him.
Get up.
Beat him.
Out the back. Shake him over the top.
Hit him in the head with the stick.
Work that stick. Hammer.
Ah.
You gotta stack him. Get up, stack him. Get him on your feet. Strike.
I like that. Listen to stick on skull. Oh.
That's it, right.
You know what I say to this? It's about damn time that us in North America showed some freaking balls, man. Finally, a video that people in Russia will look at and say, you know what? Those guys are crazy. MMA Meltdown continues. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. Thanks to Cub Swanson and John Ramdeen for stepping up and in so far tonight. But the show would not be complete without an odds check from Costa Rica with the best damn odds maker in the business. Joey Odessa steps up and in. Joey, what's going on?
What's happening, Gabe? Maybe not the best, maybe the most overworked. Man, the changes and the bouts, it's awesome, though. We got something to talk about every week.
Yeah, you know, and I don't mean to snub Bellator. I know you're not a huge Bellator fan, but we haven't even gotten any Bellator this evening. But you know what? So what? Because we don't have time tonight. We got UFC 171. So, Joey, we went a little long with Cub Swanson. Joey joins me on the radio show. We have a chance to talk about every fight on SiriusXM channel 167 Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock, but you should already know that by now. So let's just sort of rapid fire blast through these fights. Just quickly on this one, Joey. Jury favored against Sanchez. What do you make of this one?
Well, tough fight. I mean, I like Miles Jury. We've ridden the Miles Jury bandwagon. He had that tough fight against Mike Ricci, who, you know, if we want to go back, I was actually going back doing some MMA math, and it's funny because you can go all the way back to like 2007, and you're like, wow, how are these bouts even relevant, you know, stat-wise compared to now? But I tell you what, Sanchez's best recent performance was just surviving while getting the snot knocked out of him. But he was there for all three rounds, and that's something that Miles Jury, hasn't really seen. Miles Jury's a finisher, so if he busts him up, you know, they could stop it. Will they stop it? I don't know. I think Miles Jury's got his work cut out for him.
Let's get into Jake Shields and Hector Lombard. The number surprised me a little bit in this one. To see Lombard in the 220, 225 range. All Jake Shields does is win fights. Yes, he lost. He lost a couple of fights in a row. He lost the GSP fight, and then he lost again. His father died. He had some personal issues. There was some controversy at the gym. Jake Shields back on track right now. He has a way of just sort of nullifying his opponent. And I know you hate the V word in value, but when I see Jake Shields at plus 180 against anybody, I want a piece of it, Joey.
You know, Jake Shields, let's look at Lombard. It's not so much what Shields has done because his record speaks for itself. I mean, he's 29-6-1, all quality losses. We could look at Lombard and, you know, and say, look, he's 33-4, and tackle his losses and say, well, geez, he lost to Gono, he lost to Tim Boach, you know what I mean? He lost to Okami, and we could tear him down from there, but you don't need to. Look at the 33 wins. Let's be real. Who did Hector Lombard ever beat? And it's going to draw a lot of criticism. He can knock anybody out. I've maintained it, one of the best, 2-minute fighters in MMA. But we saw Jake Shields get rocked by one of the hardest punchers, on the planet at the time, Dan Henderson, and he recovered. Jake's like an anaconda. He's got a way of winning fights. I think the bout's a toss-up. I like Jake Shields here.
I agree with you 100%. He is like an anaconda. He just puts you in an uncomfortable position. It might not be the most entertaining fight to watch, but I think Jake finds a way to get it done. Condit and Woodley. A lot of people that I respect like both sides of this fight. I'm a Carlos Condit guy. I've got a soft spot in my heart for this guy. I like the way that he brings it. I like his resilience in the octagon. I like his experience. And quite frankly, I think Woodley's slightly overrated, Joey. But from what I understand, you like Tyrone.
You know, I tell you, I think that Tyrone can take him down. It depends what kind of fight he fights. I mean, Condit's going to have an awesome game plan. The judges are going to be significant. You know, I mean, they always are. They're going to award guys, who knows what they're going to judge here. I mean, Tyrone's tough. I mean, 12-2, and he's lost to Shields, arguably a win. Split decision, right? I mean, he knocked Jay Herron out. He's got power. He beat Koscheck. I mean, not Koscheck stiff, or if I recall, that was at, 167. And, Condit's tough, but I think Condit gets taken down, and depending upon how they score the fight, I like Woodley.
And which leads us into the main event, Joey. And a lot of people are asking me this, especially even here at the Fight Network. Guys in the studio ask Joey, is Johnny Hendricks minus 400 because he's supposed to win? Or is it because of the betting market? And, the common theme, and look, Ramdeen was just on the show and said, wow, that's insane that Hendricks is 400. How do you not take Lawler at plus 300? And then I'm thinking, you guys are pretty good at baiting people. You're like fishermen. You want to bait people in. If everyone likes Hendricks, somebody's got to bet on Lawler. And how do you get action on Lawler? By putting up an inflated number on Lawler at plus 300. I don't get your motive with this one, Joey. What are you guys up to with this number here?
I tell you what, a lot of these numbers went up early, and Hendricks, there's a minus 500 out there that I know got there on money. And when I say it got there on money, it got there by people sending it in on Johnny Hendricks. The same thing with Carlos Condit. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place because I like Woodley here a little bit, and, I've seen Condit just getting pounded at minus 200, minus 205, and, same with Miles Jury. I mean, these are some tough fights. These are really, I like some of these underdogs, and I might get caught in the whole live dog that won't win trap for this entire main card because it happens, but this is, I think Hendricks wins the fight. This is kind of a wrestler's card.
It'll be interesting to see if Johnny Hendricks uses any of his wrestling skills. Not that Lawler's a slouch on the ground, but seems like Johnny just doesn't. Maybe he will. Maybe the game plan is to. Very, very interesting matchup, though, isn't it, Joey, with two southpaws?
I think it's great. I think it's even better because, look, there's no secret I'm a fan of Team Takedown. I'm a fan of Hendricks and all those guys, Ross Holt, the Oklahoma State guys that came over. But, the thing about the wrestlers is many of them, and this is going back to the beginning of the UFC, could never shoot from a southpaw, from an orthodox fighting stance because they'd always have their right leg forward, as a wrestler, which would be southpaw. Hendricks doesn't have that problem. You know what I mean? So it makes him even more effective. He's got power in both hands, tough as nails. He's got a beard on him, and he's been in those tight fights. Was it Koscheck that took him to the wire, and people were making cases both ways? Koscheck's been around for a while. I think it was Koscheck, right?
Yeah, don't forget, Joey, Rick Story also took him to the wire and won. But it's something that people seem to forget. Oh, it was a bad night. Unfortunately, we got to wrap it up right now, Joe. I look forward to the podcast later in the week. And, of course, check me and Joey out, SiriusXM, channel 167, every Tuesday night at 10 o'clock Eastern. Always a pleasure, Joey.
Okay, let's knock it out of the park, G.
There's great stuff with Odessa. Man, the hour just flew by tonight. MMA Meltdown continues. All right, we're pressed for time right now, so thanks to Cub Swanson, John Ramdeen, and Joey Odessa for joining us. Thanks to Fight for Something for the gear, and of course, check out countermove.com with a K. The spots are filling up fast, people. I can't do anything more than that. Countermove with a K. Other than that, you're on your own. Later.